What's up? What's up? What's up? Podcast audience, Chad Belding back at you. Another episode of The Fowl Life. We are still on this kick, the WILDFOWL 2020-2021 gear issue. I've said it's the Bible of duck hunters, the Bible of goose hunters. I truly mean that. It should be on your newsstands now, in your mailboxes now. We've covered duck calls. We've covered guns. We've covered camo. We've covered blinds. We've covered apparel. We've covered decoys with the one and only freaking Fred Zink. I mean, how do you get better than the master himself? And today we are joined by two other masters in their own right. One in nerding out over ammunition and marketing ammunition and designing ammunition. And he works for the greatest ammunition of all time in the history of the world, which is Federal Premium Black Cloud. Please welcome Dan Compton. Compton, how are you? Straight out of Compton comes a crazy mofo named Ice Cube from the gang called You Know What's With Attitude. I got to saw it off. Go ahead, Compton.
I was going to say, like, Compton's in the house is like, to the people over here, to the people over there, to the people, go everywhere, watching the show.
Oh, how are you, brother, from another
I'm good. How
mother?
are you, man?
Awesome. And also we have one of my favorite people I've ever met in my entire existence in the duck hunting industry, my travels on earth. He said a quote one night in a Yukonuba dog food dinner that we're not going to ever repeat. He is the man, the myth, the legend, builds the absolute greatest choke tubes, his technology, his Cerakoting, everything that he does from the forcing cones. You've heard him here on the Fowl Life podcast before. He hails from the great state of Arkansas. He owns and operates with many great employees on his crew. Rob Roberts, Custom Gunworks. Rob, how are you, sir?
Doing good. I hope you don't expect me to do any of that rap stuff. I am from Arkansas. That ain't happening. I'm more like the hee-haw guy where he slaps himself and goes, he, and does that. That's more of my rap. Okay?
I don't know if that was Deliverance or hee-haw. Which one was that?
It was I seen a clip last night. I thought, oh, my God, that was 100 years ago.
TV was so good back then. The Golden Girls are trying to kick that off of TV now. Yeehaw me. But anyway, last but not least, you guys have heard him before. We call him Skipper. His real name, I don't even know his real name. I do know his real name, but I won't let it out of the bag unless he wants to. He goes by Skip. He is the man. He is the man behind OSG, Intermedia, Wildfowl, Gun Dog, Predator Nation magazine. Skip Knowles, welcome back. How are you today?
Very good, sir. Happy to be here. Stoked, actually. And if you must know, it's Frank Joseph Knowles IV, actually. True story. You can see why I don't use it.
Yeah, I like it, Frankie.
Why you went with Skip, yeah.
The staggering byline.
Just call me Skip. Well, I think
it's 2 syllables. Ski up. I love it.
I've heard this subject talked about before on many different levels because I absolutely love the idea of shotgunning and patterning and ammo and everything that goes into the engineering and the design of all three of those. And I've said it so many times, and I'm not afraid to say it on this podcast, that when you mix a Benelli Super Black Eagle 3 or an M2 with a high-vis sight and a Rob Roberts choke tube, and out of that system comes Federal Black Cloud, you can have it in 12 or 20. You can't get better. You just can't. It's impossible. I know that there's people out there that would say that they have their favorites. In my opinion, that combination right there, because of the individuals on this episode today, plus many other people in the Federal family and the Rob Roberts family. But when that combination works day in and day out and so consistently, Skip Knowles, I have a hard time believing that there's no argument there, because I've seen it day in and day out. And where I'm going with that is that we owe it to the ducks. We owe it to the animals that we're pursuing to harvest them ethically and quickly with no cripples. And I know that cripples happen, but nothing that's inhumane. And when you mix what Rob has built with his choke tube system, his patterning system, his everything that he does in his custom gun shop, and what Compton and the boys do at Federal Black Cloud, and you mix that flex wad and the different ingredients inside that shell, inside that bullet, as they call it in the South. A lot of people in the South, I've said it before, bullets are like cigarettes in prison down there, right? I mean, people will die for a case of shotgun shells in the South. So I have you guys on here today because of the gear issue. And when you open that gear issue, you're going to see all of these combinations and all of these. There's other ammunition manufacturers. There's other shotgun manufacturers and choke tube manufacturers and this and that. I'm just saying that this combination, I wanted to get you guys on here because we can talk about patterning and choke tubes and ammunition, and how it all comes together to take care of that mallard duck, that Canada goose, that speck, that snow, ethically and quickly and humanely. So that's where I'm coming off. I'm not on a soapbox. I'm just saying that there's the right way to kill animals and there's a wrong way to kill animals. So I want to start with Skip about when you think about all of your hunting adventures. I want you to keep this in mind for the next 60 minutes, Skip Knowles, Frankie. I want you to think about there's one product during your hunt that comes in contact with the live animal that you're chasing. There is another part of your hunt that comes in contact, and that's your dog's mouth when he retrieves it, he or she retrieves it. But ammunition out of that choke tube that Rob builds is the only thing that touches them, besides my calling, touches their ear, and it's so romantic they have no choice but to come closer. But the only product that touches that animal, Rob Roberts and Dan Compton, Skip Knowles, is the BBs coming out of that black cloud through that choke tube that Rob builds. So that's what I want to keep in mind as we talk about this. How important is that part of the hunt? It's the most important part. It's gotta be. That's the impact. That's what is going to make or break the hunt and put food on your family's table. And we're all providers here. So let's start, Skip, with any thoughts that you have when you write this magazine and you laid it out and you see what Black Cloud does and what Rob Roberts does. And these guys are geniuses at what they do. What do you want to accomplish today and find out?
I would like people to just understand the importance of this stuff. I've been shocked at how many times I'm in a duck line with a bunch of guides, a bunch of veterans, a bunch of pros, and everyone prides themselves on getting them as close as they can. Let's be honest, Chad, especially with geese, that happens. I mean, the 20-yard thing happens maybe 20% of the time, especially with big geese late season. And I've just been shocked at the number of guys who are like, "Oh, I'll just shoot whatever ammo, man. That modified choke's been welded into my beat up gun forever." They just don't think it matters. And I know when the geese are 40, 45 yards away and completely killable with the right combination, and they're just spraying them. You can hear the pellets hit a bird sometimes. It's unethical to even hit them and not kill them, like you said. And I want to drive home the importance of it and how, because I've been in some situations where we've done things, as Dan has seen once or twice, they're just remarkable when the right choke and the right load hit the right choke. The combination come together. It's unbelievable what they're capable of, and also what they're not capable of. And so many people don't understand that, and I want people to understand it.
And that's where I want to take it, is that when you open up the gear issue, it's hard to fathom how many hours that you and Layden and the crew have in that book. We just look at it and we're like, "Oh my God, it's here. It's the Bible. It's here." But nobody ever stops to think like, "Gee, I wonder how many late nights Skip had. I wonder how much research Skip did, and how many hours that Layden did this and John Gordon did this and the writers did this." Nobody gets that part of it. So when they see that duck on the ground, it comes back and you're holding it up for your pictures and all of the little Instagram stuff that we all love. I know Rob is a fanatic about Instagram. He's on there nonstop with selfies and shit. It's like you think about how many hours has Rob Roberts and Dan Compton dedicated to the success of the American, Canadian, world waterfowl hunter. And I know that you guys do a lot of other ammo and a lot of, rifles and all of that, but we're talking about waterfowl hunting today and the gear issue. Nobody, Skip, ever stops to think about, I wonder how many sleepless nights Rob Roberts has had on the design and the specification and the perfection of his system. How many meetings has Dan Compton, how many miles and air miles has Dan Compton put in? How many factory tours and walks and meeting and all the stuff that goes into the strategizing of Black Cloud, the number one selling ammo in the world? There's nothing close to it. So that's what I try to stop and think is like, what are we really looking at here? And it's the precision, it's the expertise, it's the knowledge, it's everything that all of those hours go into that a lot of people don't account for when they pull that trigger. And that's what I wanted to get in, is like, what really is happening behind closed doors that make our hunt so successful. So Rob, if you think about what we did at your place this year in Arkansas, you're doing that every minute of every day with your crew. You are seeing things, tendencies, why people are shooting high, why a gun's shooting low into the left, why there's only this many pellets on target in a 36-inch circle at 30 yards. You could wrap that stuff off. I could put you on the hot seat right now and you'll just be like, boom, 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 because you get it and you've studied it. And that's what I want people to take away from this podcast today, is that this isn't guesswork. This has been proven over and over. Right, Rob Roberts?
Yes, we're working on some new stuff. I was actually talking to Dan yesterday. We've got some stuff that we have spent the last 3 months really going into. We won't do it today. This is something for the near future, but we are breaking it down even more so than we've ever done before. We've taken stuff that we did 25 years ago and tried to put it into play to see, is this work? Is there something we missed? Let's try this again. Let's try that again. I'm talking from just all kinds of different things, from wad stripping to parallel sections to all different types of things, porting, non-porting, all this stuff. And we are just putting the intel together, because the bottom line is, there's great guys that can go out and call. Me, I sound like a big old farting in a fruit jar when I blow a duck call. I usually hunt with guys that can call, and so when you have that aspect going, you got to be able to shoot. And I'm 100% with you. We look for overkill. You owe it as a sportsman, when that bird flies in, to kill it dead. Don't have it fly off. The dog chases it for 2 miles and don't find the couch, get it, whatever the case may be. I look at a sportsman as somebody that when he shoots, it's just like a puff of feathers and it hits the ground dead. If somebody shoots me, I want you to shoot me dead. Don't let me limp off. But it is funny that you mentioned that, because we are working in the next couple of months. We've really went deep, more so than we ever have before. So we got some cool stuff that we will talk about future casts.
And Dan, would you say that the same thing as the culture of federal, of that it's, I for one have always asked people, especially in the federal family and the Benelli family, is like, you can't make it any better. Just stop right now. You guys could probably all be laid off right now. And that's not a joke. It's like, how can you get better? Why are you still there, Compton? You can't make what you did last year any better, but you can. And that's what's so riveting, is that Rob's, he's hinting to it, Dan, but you're always that guy on the forefront of the cutting edge with your company, and the brand of Federal Premium is like, there's new materials, there's new science, there's new technology, there's new engineering. It's never ending, right, Dan Compton?
Yeah, and I'm kind of blown away, because I'm a cog in a wheel, and I'm lucky enough to be the marketing guy. So I get to go in, I meet with Eric Carlson's of the world, the Adam Mosers, engineer guys that you've met before. I get to say, I need this load, and I need it to shoot a minimum of 75% pattern efficiency at 40 yards. And then they take off, and like when we redid the wad, and we did the flex wad, when we updated it, my goal for the team was it has to shoot as good or better than the wad did before. It can't be worse. And then just to watch them kind of go in the iterations that go into it by, the slits in the wad, if they add 1/1000th of an inch versus this iteration, like what did that do to the pattern? Going from 3 slits to 4 slits, or the internal dimensions, and just watching them figure that out and say, well, what if we do this and we make this longer and here? And sometimes you're scrapping for just, and Rob can probably attest to this, you're scrapping for that last 3%, that's going to put you over the hump, right? You're almost there, and you're like, well, we could probably call it good, but I want 5 more pellets out of the load or whatever. And that's the dedication, the love, and the smarts that go into it, and we won't settle for it until we get.
Okay, so Dan, stay on with me for a second. If you can, I don't know if you can face your microphone a little bit more. Okay. I'm getting a little bit of if you can. But the gear issues in the mailbox, the end consumer is excited as heck. The Bible is finally here, and I don't say Bible lightly. I am not comparing it to the Holy Father, any of that. Okay, I'm just saying that it has become per se the Bible of duck and goose hunters. I just always want to make sure that people don't think I'm taking that out of context, but. They look in there and they see this picture of a box, and it says Black Cloud on it, and it might, and it might be a 12 gauge, it might be 3 inch, might be 3.5 inch, it might be a 7, or it might be a BB, it might be a 2, it might be a 3. What are we trying to educate people with at that level? Because there's got to be that touch point, right? There's got to be the performance factor of what you and Rob do on a daily basis. People have to see that, that's what's going to differentiate the content part of it and your marketing and all of that, and what Rob's alluding to. But when that magazine's open, what is a company like Federal? You just said that you're in marketing. What can you get through to that reader in Skip's magazine that him and Layden take so many hours to lay out? What can the reader expect to see on Black Cloud and Federal Premium in the gear issue?
They're going to look and say, I got a load for no matter what I'm doing. I got something that's going to be there for me, whatever gauge, whatever duck I'm trying to pursue, whatever goose I'm going after. And then they're going to see, hopefully we break down into the technology. They're going to see that, for one, you got the federal name, which means quality. You're going to know if you got shot inside that load, it's going to be ball bearing grade, which means take them out, cut them up, mic them. They're all going to mic the same, you get the same thousandths, and a 2 is going to be a 2 and a 3 is going to be a 3. There's competitor shells you open up, cut them up, and you could have anything from, 2s to 7s in there. I see Rob nodding his head. So, every load is going to be designed to do a specific thing. You're going to know that when we tested it, we're going to test it from minus 30 to degrees up to 130 degrees so that we get the same pressure every time. And that as you get colder, guns have a tendency to misfire. So we specifically design them to cover that. And then you're going to have one of probably the best design wads that's ever come out there that's designed to hold super tight and what I would say efficient pattern, edge to edge coverage. We've done everything we can to minimize the hole. So you add all that together, I love you. You've said it before, pull the trigger, send the dog.
That's my federal quote. It's really what I mean.
That's the goal every time.
Well, that's that. And I was going to ask Rob Roberts this. Rob Roberts. That's like a rap name right there. I love that. Rob Roberts. What if somebody opened Wildfowl Rob and they saw this picture, this full page ad, and it just had this quote, and it was the quote that I said at the beginning of this conversation podcast of Benelli plus this, and it was High-Vis plus Rob Roberts plus Federal Premium Black Cloud.
Well,
you can't get better.
I hope everybody reads it.
But
I'm with you. And the one
you've done it. Sorry, Rob, but you've done enough testing. Would you validate that with an amen, or would you say, well, Chad's a little off here? Or are you allowed to talk about how special Federal Premium really is in your testing?
No, it is. And one of probably the most important thing out there with especially waterfowl loads, we deal with all of it, turkey loads, buckshot, all that kind of stuff. But waterfowl loads, you want consistency. And that's something, just like the Black Cloud, it's consistent. You're going to get the same thing, whether you buy this case last year, 6 months from now, whatever the case may be. And that's one of the most important things. People don't realize how important it is to take care of your ammo. And we've talked about that before where, you see, and I kind of feel sorry for some of the ammo guys when people are getting barrels that are bulged and choke tubes are split and they blame it on us. And of course, we turn around and blame it right on, them guys. But no, in reality, what happens is they're keeping their they're keeping their ammo in bad conditions. If that ammo gets down and it's out there and 10 below zero, and you go out and shoot it, you're more tendency to have bloop loads and everything else. So when you take a load such as this Black Cloud, you're just finding so much consistency. Your patterns are the same, and like I said, you're high and low on your temps, everything. It's you don't hear about it. We hear about it. We actually see the loads that come in, and we're not naming names, and we're not trying to downgrade the rest of the world. We see certain companies that have a whole bunch of, hey, my barrel blew up, or I split this and split that. And a lot of times it's usually the user. They'll blame it on the ammo every time, but you got to take care of it. You got to take care of the ammo just like you do. You can leave your gun in the boat overnight. Don't leave your ammo in the boat overnight, And so, but consistency is the main thing I would say on any of it. When you're getting good patterns, just especially like me, I hunt lots of rice fields. So the fad today is everybody going into the small gauge stuff, and that's fine. If you're in an area where, you're going to shoot everything at 20, 25 yards, I don't have that. I shoot lots of 12 gauge stuff on ducks because most of the time we're out here in a rice field somewhere. When the wind gets up, it gets heavy. We got to have something to kill. And that's a great load for it. You take your consistency, you take that wad design and everything else. And because now you're actually shooting 40, 50 yard ducks. And, you got to have something that's working consistently to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of this is that you could watch what we do on TV and how anal I've become, and Compton's hunted with me, and I get a lot of people going, call the shot. Why didn't he call the shot? What did you? And okay, that's just I see Compton laughing, and I've had George Thompson at Benelli threatened my life. And he told me, I'll never hunt with you again. He's called me every name in the book. I do it on purpose. I'll have mallards walking on top of his blind and I won't call his shot just to piss him off. Yeah. Right. But not everybody hunts that way. Okay. Not everybody has the luxury of waking up in the morning. And I'm very thankful and humbled by it. But if it's raining, I might say we're not going today because I don't want the cameras to get wet. Where a lot of people, that's their only day. So they might not be able to get them in that tight because of shadows and the sun's not shining. It's a low ceiling. It's a dead day. There's no wind. There's a lot of different elements of Mother Nature that takes place that can, that can make or break a hunt. So what Rob's saying is very key, Dan Compton, of there are going to be times where ducks are shot at 45, 50 yards. And that's where you see the balance and the consistency of a 15-yard decoy and duck over the mojo and over the blocks, and then a 45 passing shot, because it might not be a decoying day and you want to eat some duck poppers that night at duck camp. So talk to me a little bit about that, Dan, and how you can focus, or your marketing efforts, or how you can educate the customer of here's the question for you, Dan. Let's just start with this question. Wildfowl opened up. I'm going to Canada for the first time. I'm going to be concentrating on mallards and Canada geese of the bigger variety Canada geese. What would you tell me to go buy before I leave to cross the border to Saskatchewan?
I'd probably tell you I would go with the grab bag if it was me. I would go with 3-inch double Bs, of our ounce and a quarter load. So their speed, typically you see an ounce and an eighth, a little faster, ounce and a quarter, a little slower. I tend to lean towards more pellets. I like more pellets in a pattern. So I would say look for an ounce and a quarter double B 3-inch load, and then ounce and a quarter ounce and a quarter number 2s. And that's probably what I would go with, because that's going to be general all around, especially up there. You're probably looking at some, like you said, bigger mallards and, average size geese to larger size geese. And that's going to cover you. We do have a one shot, which is right in the middle. And that's kind of the sweet spot in my heart. I really just feel like I've always shot better with ones. I can't scientifically back that up, but I just know that's experience has worked for me. But that's what I tell you to go for.
3-inch ones is your favorite?
3-inch tubes.
Okay. So when you're educating that consumer, mm-hmm. The hole is the same length, Rob Roberts and Dan Compton and Skip Knowles. It's 3 inches.
Yep.
The size is what that letter, the BB, means, and the 2 and the 1 and the 3, right? So if you grab your chart there, Dan, I like asking you the nerd stuff of how much bigger, Rob Roberts, is a BB of a BB shot size. Is it way bigger than a number 2 shot?
No, and I'll tell you something. We've taken the chokes because we get a lot of people that ask BBs to 2s to 3s, which is probably the most common of all of them. 2s, 3s, and BBs. We find that you're just kind of filling in the void, if you would. The patterns are coming out. I know out of our chokes, we'll go out 40 yards. We're getting the same patterns with, let's say, a T2 with the BBs as we are the 2s or the 3s. You're just filling in more void. And so the one thing, like Dan was talking about on BBs, you're killing everything. You don't have to worry about it. You're killing. If you're in Canada, you're killing coyotes ravens. Wait a minute, geese, pigeons. No, you're getting everything with it. I mean, they will go down to it. I seen a white cat one time, got real bad trouble with it. But 2s, I'm more of a deuce guy, so 2s will go over everything. It is kind of the happy go for pretty much everything that ails you. But yes, and 3-inch. Another thing, a lot of guys go to 3.5. They absolutely think if they're not shooting a 3.5, they're not killing. And that's not the case. Normally you see the guys that are backing off 2 3-inch shells or 3-inch shells at this point here. And what they're finding is they're not getting beat up so bad. So they're actually quicker, acquisition to their next shot, to the next, they're killing more. And you're seeing a lot of the 20 gauge guys doing the same thing because they're not getting beat up and their recoil and everything else. They're shooting better. Some guys may walk out there and they're in great shape and they're rough and tough, and 3.5s don't bother them. But, kind of like what you asked him, I would take 12 gauge and 3-inch shells is what I'd be loaded up with. You know, I mean, that's that'll do everything you need to do, whether you're in Alberta, Saskatchewan, or wherever other province or whatever.
Well, I could back that up before I go back to Compton. Is that I've never shot a 3.5-inch shell in Canada. I have shot them in the States. They are what they are, and the black clouds they kill. There ain't no doubt. But I am I'm that acquisition guy. I am more about the fluency and being more athletic of target to target and acquiring that target and killing them dead. And I take a lot of pride in being able to call the shot and then envision where the ducks are going to go once that shot's called. Like teal might go straight up, so you're boom, boom, and you're doing that. Or a mallard might do something that is more matrixy, and a widgeon. I've seen widgeon cut the air to where you're like, wow, man, that thing just dodged a bunch of bees. So I'm trying to visualize that and get my shot in the place that it's supposed to be. And a 3.5, they work. But Dan, when you're reading that chart and you said that you're going to take BBs in 3-inch and you're going to take 2s, what is the difference as far as number of BBs inside that hole of black cloud?
Yeah, Rob said something that really struck home too. He's like that pattern circle is going to be about the same, so at 30 inches, you're filling up about, 30 yards, 40 yards, your outer rim of the pattern is the same. Going from a double B is going to have 90 pellets, and a 2 is going to have 156. You're getting 66 more pellets to fill up that hole. 156.
So you're getting 66 more pellets. Is that right?
Yes.
66. I don't know, Rob, if you're looking at 66 more pellets and you have a 30-inch circle, how many more of those 66 left over of the 90 something that you have in the BB are going to be in that circle and on that bird?
Well, you do have shot strings and stuff like that. That's not, that we're not talking about at this point. So as it's traveling through the air, it's probably going to help you more so on the lead factor than it is actually hitting it. You know what I mean? So in other words, if you're a little too far out in front of that bird, that longer shot string is still hitting him. I know I'm not explaining that very well. A shot string is the length of the shot in the air. So even though you got those more, 60 some more pellets, they're not all hitting there at exactly the same time. So what I'm saying is, as that goes through, you might be getting the tail end of this, so you're still killing the duck. And so that would probably come into play more so. And quite frankly, I've not seen any problems with even the 3s on there when you go to Canada on killing these geese. Now, late, really cold, definitely you'd want BBs. Run your temperatures with that stuff. And but like I said, those extra pellets are helping more so in the shot string than they are just actually hitting the paper. I don't think I've explained it very well to you.
No, I think that you've explained it fine, and I think that what you said is like, if you're not getting the center mass, right? If the center mass isn't connecting on the contact point of the keel, that tail end still has enough in it with those extra BBs with enough velocity and firepower still to still harvest the animal dead. Is that kind of where you're going with it?
Well, some people think, well, I'm going to go to 3s over BBs because that's going to put more pellets in the air inside the circle that's, it's going to hit them. That's not the case. It's actually streaming it this way a little further. You know what I mean? And so as that shot string is going through there, you've got more pellets.
Then why would anybody ever shoot a 28 gauge? Because I always thought that the reason that you would shoot a 28 gauge is that you have so much more killing capability with the amount of BBs that are coming out of that hole with enough firepower still. Why would you ever shoot a 28 gauge if it's not the number of BBs coming out of that hole necessarily?
Well, I don't duck hunt with a 28, but that's saying wind's your factor. You know what I mean? Take your conditions into factor. I've hunted with some guys up in Missouri that are just great guys, and they have the holes that these birds are coming in, and they are literally dropping in your face at 20 yards when they come through the timber, and that 28 gauge is just it mops them up. It's great because a 28 gauge, and I'm not a small gauge guy anyway. It's just like 410s on turkeys. The world has went crazy over a 410 on turkeys. They love them. I'm not the big fan. 28 gauge, I am a fan because that is a great caliber, and especially on the wing shooting side of it. But yes, that I'm not going to go to Canada with 28. That's the only thing I can carry up there.
So
ammunition's changed the game with that. The first time I shot a 28 gauge was the first time I filmed in World of Red at TV up there, and went to Tony Vandemore's place and took a couple of 28 gauges there, and he was apprehensive. He thought they were 20 gauges. He's like, okay, we'll do this. He found out they were 28s, and his big baseball player hands, they looked tiny in his hands, little 4-pound gun, 5-pound gun. We were shocked because we used some tungsten mix. But that's the thing with that stuff. You use any tungsten mix, and it's murderous stuff. You can kill them right out to 40 yards. Shoot mallards so dead they drop into tree limbs and won't flop out. No cripples. They're incredible, but it's the ammo. Is a huge part of that.
That's where the custom shop's going to come in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's where your custom shop's going to come in on that.
Yeah,
well, I'd like to get in on this custom shop. Do you have to have like a member's jacket or something to get into this deal, Compton?
It's similar to that. So
members only.
Rob's been there. I don't. Yeah, you'll get there someday. Yeah, Rob's been there.
That's
I know Brian Kelvington.
There you go.
So when you start talking about that magazine again, Dan, I want us to keep in mind of like I think a lot of us on this, as much as we've seen in the field and in the testing that you guys have done, I self-admittingly can take things for granted once in a while on how special it is of what we're getting to shoot and operate with what we get to do. And I want to get this message across to this end consumer and these guys and girls that are really getting in to this heritage and lifestyle of duck hunting, of how do you get more educated on this part of the game, and why are the guys at the top of the game, like you just mentioned Tony Vandemore. I don't know how many shotguns I've patterned with Fred Zink, where Freddie's deadly with a Benelli. And I know that he shoots Browning now, but back when I was hunting with him was before his Browning days. He's deadly, but we always went out and patterned. So I want to move into, you have the ammo now. Do you tell your customer, Dan Compton, that you owe it to yourself and the bird to go out and make sure you understand what those bullets or those BBs are doing when they leave that muzzle and that choke tube? What's going on target? It's not just going out and shooting sporting clays, right, and hitting one out of every 7 to go, oh, I'm ready to go duck hunting. We have to go put this on paper, correct, or a patterning board?
Absolutely. It's like one of the things I've always heard people talk about, always heard people recommend, and very few people, I think, actually go out and do it. And the main thing, it's gonna show you what your gun likes the best. Your gun's probably gonna have a load that it likes the best. And if we were saying, shooting double Bs versus 2s, and that 2s is giving you that more consistent pattern, I would take the more consistent pattern over the bigger shot any day. And then it's just going to show you that point of aim of the bird. I shoot the pattern, and where I'm aiming, maybe it's high, or maybe it's low, or maybe it's off to the left. And you could go out in the field and think you're leading them right every time, and your pattern shooting at a piece of cardboard is going to tell you whether you're right or wrong.
Yeah, and I think that what I experienced being at Rob's place and people reading Wildfowl, again, of my statement in the beginning of this conversation of how many hours have gone into this, I left there going, man, like the technology that Rob is testing with is on a different level. And he's got some of the, I from what I hear through the rumor mill is that Federal and Rob Roberts have like 3 out of the 4 machines that were ever constructed. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but just seeing the precision of what I was doing and how him and his guys could say, well, you might be pulling off, you might be jerking a little bit. What are you doing at 30 yards compared to 35? You might be shooting a little bit low and right, but your center of impact is still enough there. It's like, I have all the paperwork here. I look at it with my brothers because we're going to put this episode together. Rob sent me home with a freaking like a syllabus of stuff to have ready for your college exams. And it's just like all this nerd stuff that I'm like, that's what you owe to those birds. And I'm so geeked out by it, Compton, of we're living in the golden age of being a shotgunner right now with the innovation, the technology and the testing that can happen and what you guys are building. Why not take advantage of that? Why not go to Arkansas and visit Rob when you're down that way and get on his board and see what you're doing? But a lot of customers, Rob Roberts, they entrust you to build their gun out with your system, and they've never visited your place. So how can the end consumer reading Wildfowl know that their gun's going to come back to them and do what Compton and you were talking about, on this podcast, if they've never been there shooting with you?
No, but they can take some of the information like on the sheets and stuff that comes back, and we try not to overwhelm them by bringing, here's a whole notebook full of paper. You need to look at this, look at that, look at this. And it does what we try to do is when we get done is we try to make sure that the gun is shooting straight and it's in the right spot and it likes this with that. For example, if we go out, we get back, we're going to tell them, okay, your gun likes, like we're talking the black cloud there, a 3-inch number 2 black cloud. Here's what the pattern's doing, shooting the T2 choke, blah, blah, blah. What we find is those guys will normally, they're going to double check you. They're going to go out. They don't take them on. They're going to go out, grab that particular. They're not going to go through all the loads and all the different chokes. They're going to go grab that load, that choke, go shoot it on the water, if nothing else, and go, okay, they didn't lie to us. They didn't do anything else. This worked. This is great. It took the guesswork. Guys spend a lot of times, look how long you train your dog. It's just they're training their dog. They're getting their boat ready. They're leasing land. They're doing this. They're stringing decoys. They're doing everything else. They kind of say, you guys get my gun ready. And that's what we're here for. Because like you said, when the most important parts when you get done is you got to hit them when they come in. You can do everything else correctly. And if you're shooting wads of nothing up in the air, you're not bringing any ducks home with you. And so that's what we try to do. We try to do it so all the guesswork's done. Your gun likes this. There you go. And,
well, I've seen it so many times, Rob, about where a guy comes on a hunt and he might not have his gun, and they're going to shoot one of our guns, and then they struggle, and I know that gun's on, and I could probably take that gun and hit a duck. And now there's a lot of factors that go into that part of it. Once the gun's set, you mentioned something in there. You said the words "your gun." Compton alluded to it. It's your gun, your specifications, what your gun likes. There are shooters out there that could grab a BB gun and go hit because they're proficient marksmen, but that doesn't happen day in and day out. When you have the gun set up for you and you got your pull, everything, it's measured for you, and the length of pull is there for you, and that gun is built for you with the shim kits and everything's in there, there's still that opportunity for failure. But you've done everything in your power to make sure that gun likes the shell that you're shooting and that you're on target. You can't walk away from that patterning board and go, well, it's the gun, it's the ammo, it's the choke tube. No, it's dead on.
That's right.
Now there is the art of shotgunning and the swing and everything that goes into that part of it. That's where practice comes in. But what I stated when I first said those words to Compton is you got to go out and put it on paper to know that when you go out there and you're shotgunning, that you're not behind the 8 ball now, that you might not be swinging right. And then on top of that, your gun's shooting the wrong ammo with the wrong choke tube combination. That's what I'm getting at.
Well, and the one thing into a shotgun, it's not a rifle. We can put a rifle together and all of us can take it out there and shoot the bullseye, no problems. Well, shotgun needs to shoot where you're looking, not where it's looking. So you see a lot of guys that'll go out and they'll say, well, I went out and took my gun out and I put it on the bench and I put it in some kind of vise or a sled and I shot this at the paper and my point of impact is way off. Well, it probably is. What you need to do is take it out there and shoot it off the shoulder, because you're not going to have that bench. You're not going to have it. You need to have both eyes open, looking at the target and shoot, and that gun shoot to where you're at. If it don't do that, that's where we come in and try to help. Now, it is more difficult in today's world with all the synthetic stocks that everybody's putting on. Your companies like Benelli, at least they are putting different varieties of shim kits and stuff so you can change cast on, cast off, up, down, try to get it to where it's shooting. And that is one thing that comes in play. But you can also, that don't mean you have to go out there and shoot them with 3.5. Bring a box of dove loads out there and make sure you get everything on. And that's one thing that we hadn't hit on too is speed. Speed kills, and I get it. Patterns kill more. But some of these shells are getting out there that they're clear up huge, huge speeds. And, everybody thinks that's great. That's not. If you're a guy that shoots a lot, I know you go out and shoot lots of clays and stuff like that and just shoot all the time. You don't want to turn around and say, well, I've been shooting 1,250 feet a second at sporting clays, and now I'm shooting 1,750 feet or, whatever the case may be. And I can't figure out why I'm not hitting anything. That comes into play also. But, like I said, you do have to hit the pattern boards, get out and see where that gun's shooting for you. And that's where we come in. If it's, hey, I've got a gun, it's shooting here, give us a call. Knowing where it is for you, we can work with that. And that's what we do on a daily basis also, is we try to help people get the guns to fit them. I
can't vouch anymore of how instrumental it is in my success of having that knowledge. If there's anything that I tell somebody, is just soak it up. But Compton, person opens that WILDFOWL magazine this month when they get it in their mailbox or on the newsstands, and you guys, Skip alluded to this, and I know Rob's a big fan of it. He helped in the testing phases of it. But tungsten super shot and TSS has become, and Rob with the turkeys and the lighter gauges. I was lucky enough to be asked to do the testing in the field on our snow goose hunt, where I was texting you going, you've got to be kidding me, like every other volley, right? What I love about Federal, Rob Roberts and Dan Compton and Skip, is that there's a lot of different customers out there, and they make something for everybody. I might spoil myself once a year by going and getting 2 or 3 boxes of TSS just to go and hunt with it, because it's so awesome. But I'm going to consistently shoot black cloud. Some people love the blue box. Rob, if I had a dime for every time you said you love the blue box, I'd be a millionaire right now. So I love that about Federal. So Compton, why would you specialize in this shot that it's not, I don't know if I can't say it's not affordable, but it's not cheap to buy. What are you getting at, Compton, when you introduce a box of 5 or 10 rounds to the market for a waterfowl, goose, duck hunter? Because the turkey hunting mentality, Rob Roberts, is different. You might shoot 5 times the whole season after you pattern your gun. So they might have 5 hunts in 2 or 3 different states and they're done. A goose hunter might shoot 50 times in one hunt, right? What was the mindset of the TSS, Dan Compton? And what is the difference between TSS and what's that WILDFOWL end consumer going to get when he or she purchases a box of TSS?
Well, so metals are measured on what's called like grams per cubic centimeter. So if you take a cubic centimeter of steel, you put it on a scale, it's gonna weigh 7.6 grams. If you take a cubic centimeter of bismuth, it's gonna weigh 9.6 grams. Lead is gonna weigh 12 or 11. And then you get into tungstens, and it's gonna be either 13, 15, or TSS is 18. So you have twice the mass in a projectile. So think of 2 objects going at the same speed. The one that has more mass behind it is going to hit harder. And I've used tennis balls and baseballs as my example. A baseball going 50 miles an hour, a tennis ball going 50 miles an hour, the baseball is going to hit a hell of a lot harder and hurt a lot more. TSS is the baseball in that analogy. So like when you opened it off and you said the most ethical thing we can do is kill the bird, right? It's just straight physics that a denser object going at the same speed is going to hit harder and kill more. So if you're duck hunting and you might be puffing feathers off them with steel, you're gonna kill them when you hit them. And that's the point. Some people want the most lethal, the best load they can have, and it's gonna be a tungsten. And what we do on waterfowl is we mix it with steel together to fill up the payload inside the shell, and we call that black cloud TSS. But the other side of that is there is a price to it. Tungsten goes on the world market at about $45 a pound. Lead's about $1.10 a pound. So it's a big increase. But like Skip, you led to it. Shooting tungsten is a game changer.
It's just crazy. It changes the whole game. I mean, I wish I could afford to shoot it all the time. But I'm a predator hunter too, and the things we did to coyotes at distances that Terry Denman wouldn't talk about on TV. He'd walk it off 3 times as an engineer, and he's like, actually, it's about over 80 yards, and he knew it was a lot further than that. It's crazy because it changes everything, because you can use a smaller diameter shot that's so much denser that it reduces the drag in flight, and suddenly the smaller diameter shot has more energy downrange. And, conventional wisdom's always said a large buckshot type shot maintains more baseball type energy, but it also has drag because it's much larger in diameter. And it also balls up on fur and feathers and doesn't penetrate as easy. The tungsten penetrates much better too because it's smaller diameter. It's just murder, that stuff. But it's not really central to the dialogue for most of us, unless you're going on a swan hunt or a goose hunt where you're only going to shoot 3 geese or something like that. Then it's relevant. Or turkeys. I want to ask Rob something. Rob, is that okay, Chad?
Yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
Rob, you remind me so much of Terry Denman. He told me you 2 went after crocodile hunting together, and I'd love to have been a fly on the wall. You sure you're not from Monroe, Louisiana? But I wanted to, before if in case we don't get to it, I absolutely wanted to ask you, when we were all, steel shot came out a million years ago, we were all forced to shoot it. Conventional wisdom then said, everyone said, an improved cylinder when you're shooting steel is just like, a lot of people didn't even have removable chokes back then. And they were like, an improved cylinder is a lot like shooting a modified choke. And a modified is a full when you're shooting steel. And I stood in a cornfield in southern Alberta with Terry Denman, and I was insisting on shooting the T3, the tightest one. It's the T1. I get them mixed up, but your tightest choke. And he's like, you don't need to do that, Skipper. He's like, you never need to go below a modified full for steel shot. You don't need to do that. I'll get Rob Roberts on the phone right now here in the cornfield. He's ready to call it. And I'm like, no, I've seen the performance when I use the tightest one with steel. I've shot snow geese at distances that I won't talk about on TV. And it's worked for me. But he said, you don't have to. What's the truth behind steel shot and chokes?
You don't. When you're dealing with some of that old steel, like what you're talking about, it's not flexible, where you can constrict some of this other stuff down. You can, your lead and stuff, you can take it down, you get it really tight. Well, especially the old type steel where the wads were the old style and all that kind of stuff. When you get too tight, it just actually caused it to distort. It's just on the turkey load. If you put too tight a choke in on your turkey stuff, you've got a more open pattern. You think, well, I need to tighten it down. No, in reality, you get to a point where it's too tight, especially using such as like the Benelli with tight bores. So the T2, actually, that gun just really, really loves that side. But we've taken them out. The other side, the steel shot, and some of this other stuff that you were talking when you got into the TSS was, I'm an old timer especially on turkeys. In the old days, I wanted to shoot nothing but lead fours. I wasn't going to shoot. If I shot, if you have a coyote walk in and he's got a real mean look in his face and you're scared and you have to shoot him in the face just because, he was there and you're scared. I got to rephrase that. You're scared. But the fours will go in and flatten out. You're killing the game due to shock. That's the shock part taking it over. Well, today's world's not that way. You got this TSS, and you'll see I played with some on ducks to the point where, when you're shooting these ducks, and you notice when you go breast these birds out and everything, there's no shot in them. They've went completely through them. So instead of looking for shock where like lead would go in and hit, that's why you wanted the number 4s to carry the weight and hit, flatten out, and give the shock to kill. That ain't the case. Now you're using smaller shot that's heavier, and it's going through and it's breaking the bones. You're after bones, so the more the merrier. So you're getting away, like on that TSS stuff, you're getting number 8s and 9s doing the damage way more damage than the old 4s did. It wasn't that they're flattening out. It's just breaking. It's killing them harder. It's going straight through them. And they're hitting the ground.
But what about regular black cloud, Rob Roberts, and how would you educate me on Skip's question of the choke tube constrictions and the shot? Yeah, do I use a T2 when I'm shooting decoy and ducks with Federal 3-inch number 2s, or do I use a T3 or do I use a T1? What is right anymore with the technology?
You've got certain people that their focus is, I'm not going to shoot anything but this super tight choke, so you're going to have that guy. But in reality, we'll take them out here, even with the black cloud at 40 yards. And we did extensive testing we'd use number 2s, 3.5, and we were going out there and we were shooting at 40 yards. We were actually getting tighter patterns with the T2 over the T3. And it, like I said, Benelli's one of those situations that you find a gun that really lacks that constriction. It goes with the bores. The bores is what's coming in play. Like a Benelli with a T2 and black cloud is poison, even on your long range, even on your geese. If you see me in a goose pit or whatever, that's what I'm going to have in there. And I've got a lot of buddies that's come to the shop that serious waterfowl guys. And it's like, I want a T3. Can you make me a tighter one? And they'll go out here and we pattern. I said, try the T2, at 40 yards, try the T2. And finally, it's like, okay, let me do it again. Because the T2 would outperform it. We'll do it again. Do it one more time. Okay, do it. Okay, yeah, I'm going to shoot the T2. And now, certain guns, let's pick on some, pick out a different one. Let's say a Browning or a Winchester or something that's got a really big bore on it, up around a 742 bore. that's where your T3s come into play. But if, without getting into too much, what happens is a T2 in a Benelli, due to bore diameter, is actually tighter than a T3 in a Winchester Super X3 or 4 or something, because of bore diameters. And so that's kind of where you get into it. You still find a happy medium. You don't want to put a turkey choke or get extremely too tight. And the reason we do our triple threat series, a T1, T2, T3, is to get out of that conversation where you want to improve mod, or you want a mod, or we try to wipe that out of the way. So that's just something else to think about while you're out there hunting. We like for them, just screw this in, use this shell, kill. And I think it helps people's confidence, and they work out better as long as it's working. And, if we're taking them in pattern, it's working.
So Compton, going off of what Rob just said, and you heard me say what my combination of choice is, how much does the wad play into what Rob's talking about with bore diameter mixed with his choke tube system? You got those two components. And now once that firing pin hits that primer and it's activated and the powder burns and the shot's coming down the muzzle and it reaches that goes through where the forcing cones are. And I want to get into that with Rob a little bit, because that's really, really a cool deal that he does there. But what is the wad doing, Dan, with the new engineering of the Black Cloud Flex wad? Why is it significant to the success that I'm consistently getting? And when Rob was in Colorado with me, we would just look at each other and shake our heads like, wow, these are 11, 12 pound giants that are just hitting the dirt dead, not even twitching a foot. What is the wad playing, and why is it significant with this success?
Like a flight control wad is designed like a traditional wad, comes out and it goes like this and it spreads out like this and the shot disperses. The flight control wad has what we call like an air brake on the back. So the muzzle pressure is going to have this muzzle blast behind it. The wad leaves and the muzzle blast makes it flare out from the back. And that acts like an air brake. So then the wad slows down and the shot goes forward. So talking about, the different choke diameters that you have going on are going to affect how that muzzle pressure comes off. So that's why not necessarily having the tightest choke is going to give you the desired effect that you have, because it all depends about how much muzzle pressure and how quickly that muzzle pressure is getting off the back of the wad. But in essence, the flight control wad works by the muzzle blast, so to speak, to the layman, is what's opening up the wad, slowing it down, and letting your shot go forward.
And one of the reasons for the redesign of the wad was that air brake system that you're talking about, and that is going to do everything from as soon as the shot leaves the muzzle, is it going to go downrange in a different formation than you were getting with the original wad?
No, it should release exactly the same. The reason we changed the wad, and I'm sure we could have a long discussion with Rob about it, but there is people that shoot ported choke tubes, and ported choke tubes vent gas to the side. And if you're venting gas to the side, you didn't have as much muzzle pressure opening the back of the wad, and the wad wouldn't consistently give it a time. So our answer was, well, you don't need a ported choke tube, because that's why we designed the wad this way. But we did know that there was a portion of the market that was, shooting ported choke tubes. So that's why we went back and made it work for that use. But
at the same time, it's still as deadly as there's ever been a wad out of a non-ported choke tube.
Absolutely. That was the goal of the project was it had to be as good or better. So we had to gain a pattern proficiency, and the number we settled on was 5 to 10%, and that's about where it landed. From if you were shooting Black Cloud in the past to the Black Control Flex wad, on average you'll see a 5 to 10% pattern efficiency increase.
Say that one part again.
So if you were shooting from the old Black Cloud to the new with the Flex wad, you would see a pattern that had a 5 to 10% increase in pattern density. Or efficiency. So we're putting more pellets within that 30-inch circle at 40 yards than we were before. We're tightening it up.
Okay, Compton. So when that man or woman is reading their wildfowl this week and they're making that decision on what they're going to take to, let's say Canada's open. Let's cross our fingers that it opens. Maybe not, but maybe North Dakota, maybe South Dakota. Maybe it's early season goose hunt up there in Minnesota or North Dakota. What can we tell them on the choice that they make on what they can expect from day in and day out of your product on that they're going to get out of that box of ammunition as far as the culture that's built around Federal is what is the main thing that they're going to get out of a box of Federal ammunition? And I know that consistency is the first word that comes to mind. Is that the number one most important thing to end this conversation with? We're not 100% done, but I'm getting towards the end of it. I want that reader to pick up that book and they're going to go in there and they're going to say, I'm choosing Federal because of this, and now I have to. The proof has got to be in the pudding because they listened to this podcast, they read the gear review. What can you tell them that they can expect? Is it 100% the best that they're going to get out of it? Is there something that's comparable out there? Is it worth the money that they're going to spend on the Federal ammunition? Is the testing been done day in and day out that you guys are the most reputable, credible company there is in brand of ammo? What can Skip provide to his readers that's going to give them the confidence to buy Federal when they go to their retail?
I think you hit on it. And it's kind of like the theme of the whole gear issue and what we talked about today. You know, you said you got your T2 choke tube, you got your Benelli, you got your ammo. What we're talking about is a system, right? The system of shooting is, and then we're the human element of that. So we're talking about, you know, where wads that are going to be consistent. We got the best shot you can find. You got flight stopper shot that adds some of that flattening out factor that Rob was talking about. We're putting all that together, but I think as a consumer, when you read that, say there's this whole team of people, there's all these experts that are putting time, money, energy. Here's your, you know, for this fantastic product, it's confidence. You know, we're selling confidence that if you have your Benelli shotgun and you got your Rob Roberts tube and you got Federal ammo, the next part is up to you because you know when you pull the trigger, it's going to do the same thing every time. And we're taking care of our part of that system. I
love that. Rob, what would 100%. You agree with that, the system?
Confidence is the main thing. If you have the confidence that you know that your stuff's working when you go out there, you're not worried that, hey, have you ever heard of this? Have you ever heard of this stuff? You know, oh yeah, everybody has. That's good stuff. You know, that you're going to go out there. It's 100%. And you put the confidence and then you actually put stuff that works. You know it works. It's proven. And you just have a lot more successful hunt. It is, you know, and one thing that about that, the wad design and everything, and that's so much different than the other. And so one thing I didn't mention when you was asking the different choke tube constrictions and stuff, the Black Cloud is actually, it's not for close up work. You know, if it's actually almost a choke in itself. You know, I mean, it is holding things tighter. So when that's part of that T2 holding good is because that's what it likes, and you know it's holding it tighter. It's not just falling. It's not a spreader load by any means, and that's why it hits harder. And that's to me that's being a sportsman. I want to hit it hard, and so that's good stuff.
Rob, at Rob Roberts Custom Gun Works, are you an American owned and operated company, and how important is the American duck hunter, the American duck hunting culture, and what Skip does with wildfowl? How I asked this question to Fred Zink. You walk into a duck lodge, and if they don't have a wildfowl magazine sitting on the coffee table, I walk out because I lose all trust right then. It's not working for me, right? It's like going into a bathroom at a barbershop when I was a kid. If they didn't have Hugh Hefner's lovely magazine, I was out of there. I wasn't getting my hair cut then. That's probably why all my hair fell out. But what I'm trying to say is that we have a responsibility to, we tell people what we believe in, but now we have a responsibility to perform. You're an American-made company in Arkansas with the testing's there, the proof is in the pudding. How important, Rob, is this culture, is the Wildfowl magazine, is the relationship with Dan Compton and Federal and Jason and the Nashes, and this culture is so special. How does it still light your candle in your wick every day at 73 years old to get up and still go as hard as you go every day?
Well, I'm 100%, and yes, we are 100%. We actually sent steel back to Alabama where it came from because we found out it was made in China, and I have a really ugly thing towards that. It's got to be U.S. steel or we won't use it. But the 100%, you know, I've got family. I've got a nephew, 17th year in Special Forces that we're real proud of. Got to see him last week going over stuff. And no, we're USA guys. There's no doubt about it. But the culture you talk about, this is, it's I don't think of it as a dying breed. I think they're standing strong. And I think once all this political stuff gets over, and when we have our Civil War, I think it'll be the duck hunters against the rest of the world, Hopefully that don't happen, but it's great to know you got people where there's lots of ammunition. Just saying.
I think you should run for office, or at least be a speechwriter. Compton. If you think about the overall encompassing friendship that has come out of this industry, and you can geek out and have the kind of conversation that we did today, and then know that this system that you speak about, Sensei, and the memories that system is built for me and written for me and watched with my own eyes and shared with good friends. Everybody on here I've shared hunts with. Everybody that's ever been on this podcast, I think I have. I just don't know of a better way of living, a better life of being a provider, a hunter, a gatherer, and to have the confidence in your equipment that Skip takes the time to lay out to this reader, that they are going to entrust in a company like Rob Roberts Custom Gun Works and Federal Premium Ammunition. I just don't know of a better way to live that you can sit here and talk about it, geek out about it, and then go out. I know that you can go like, man, this Titleist golf ball's awesome, and this Callaway putters, whatever, dude. I get it. I suck at golf. But I'm telling you right now that duck camp and the memories that come out of duck camp are so much prevalent to me than a golf course or a round of golf. And I'm not putting down golf. I'm just saying that there's something special about what we've experienced the last decade, Dan Compton. And when you tell people to trust you and you put your name like Federal does and Rob Roberts does on this gear, we have to understand that we are doing more than selling a box of ammo and a choke tube system to this consumer. We are literally giving them at their fingertips a pencil or a brush to literally paint the best days of his or her lives for the rest of their lives, to share with their kids, their grandkids, their friends, their uncles, their aunts, their nephews, their best friends, musicians, military, janitors, bus drivers, pilots. I can go on and on, because hunting is the common denominator that brings so many walks of life together. And it might be for 2 days at duck camp. It might be for a week at deer camp, but there is something that is shared through this system we talked about that is more than taking that magazine and going, I'm just going to go buy Black Cloud and this thing with this green RR on it. It's more than that. And that's what I love about this culture. And that what you always talk about, Dan, is the memories and the songs and the meals and the cold beer after a successful hunt or a photo shoot and a high five. There's way more than just ammunition coming out of that Rob Roberts choke tube out of that Benelli. It's so special and endearing to me that we owe it to this reader of Wildfowl that they have to understand that it's more than just a purchase at the cash register. When you buy Federal and Rob Roberts and this system we talk about, you are creating a lifetime of memories for you and the people that are going to be in that duck blind with you. And that's how I feel about it. And that's why I go into every duck hunt with just, wow, man, I got to pinch myself that I actually get to do this for a living. All of us are so lucky to be sitting here and doing this going into 4th of July and our country's independence. I mean, I'm so excited, guys. And when we come out of this on the other end of this quarantine, Compton, preach to me a little bit like Chuck D and Flavor Flav would with the big clock and freaking Public Enemy. Just tell me something that what you just heard me say rings true with you.
It does. I mean, like you said, we worked together almost 10 years, and it's been more than just, well, let's set chance of ammo and, have fun, Chad. I mean, we try to go out there and live it with you. And I know when I got product ideas, I've called you and said, hey, what do you think? I've hunted with you. I've hunted with Skip. We've only met each other a few times, but I think, let's say I met Skip and we just went out to dinner, we went out to dinner, but because we were hunting, we had that a lot more of a bond and relationship. So the next time I see Skip, I'm gonna go up and give him a hug. Maybe I would have after one dinner.
I'd be careful hugging him.
Rob's the only guy on the call I haven't had a chance to hunt with, but I know
I want to go to Skip's back porch when Skip's not home, and those little kitty cats that come off the mountain behind his house, and I want to have a field day with them. But if he's home, I'm afraid I'd get in trouble.
You're gonna pass.
He's got some really cool cats that comes to his house.
We actually called in a huge mountain lion last year elk hunting, just cow calling. Ran right up to 50 yards. We had to stand up and wave at it. Enough, big dude. Go away. it gets back to what Chad was talking about earlier about just calling animals. It's a unique thing. And Dan, you did in fact see me make the longest shot on a bluegill in the history of the world.
Very impressive.
Place. I stroked one at an irresponsible distance on a slow day at the fringe of shot range, and it flared out, sailed a little bit out on the ice. We didn't know quite how far, but it landed with its head up, and we felt pretty bad. Guys are blamming away at it. And don't let this go to your head either, Robert. But I unscrewed my choke, said, "Hang on, guys." Went with the T3, said, hey, put it on my knee, aimed it like a rifle. Boom! And that duck's head flopped right over. Dan saw it. I wouldn't even bring this up, but there were about 13 witnesses that day. Yeah, and the guy from Final Approach, young man, hell on wheels with a goose call, was standing behind me. I said, "Dude, that's got to be 80 yards." And he goes, "Every bit of that." And he pulls up the Bushnell rangefinders, and he goes, "It's 108 from where I'm standing and 103 from where you're sitting." He ranged it 3 times. And all the geeks, Dan and the engineer that was there, just started, "He must have held at that range, the pattern would be dropping. He must have held high. No, he got a ricochet off the ice. Oh, neat." And just they started geeking out. And he's like, "We finally decided that half the pattern would still be in the air. Probably the bird just, heard the gunshot and had enough and just died, right?" But it was
he heard enough.
Shot.
He heard enough. But Compton, the end result of what you were saying before the story was, it is special, and we're very lucky. And I think it's awesome that we all get to have people that entrust in us. And I wanted to make sure that we came across in a way that there are other systems out there. I truly believe in this one, and I've seen it proven day in and day out. I can't tell you how many times. I couldn't even count them. I could sit here and tell you a story for the next 10 years about what I've lived through this system. And I've seen it. I've been in Argentina. I've been in Uruguay. I've been in all over Canada. I've hunted everywhere. And I know you guys have too. And it's just, it works. And that's what I loved about what you said, is that this is a system. So as that man or woman is reading wildfowl, again, just like we talked about in Duck Call, Skip Knowles, educate yourself. Call these guys, call the shop, and Rob might not be able to get to you that day, but he will get back to you and talk to you. One of his people educates you. Call the federal company and ask them what is the difference. Find out from their engineers what's going on. There is a way to get content and information in today's world, and that's what I love about Federal Rob Roberts Wildfowl. It's readily available. It's going to even be more readily available with what Wildfowl's getting ready to do. So keep that in mind as you get your gear issue this week. Check out Rob Roberts at robrobertscustomgunworks.com, federalpremium.com. Look for their Instagram accounts. Call them up. Become friends with them. Let's all get on a hunt. Let's all stay safe. Let's all wish America a happy birthday. Let's all support our leadership in this country, and let's break down some of these barriers that we are facing. And like Rob said, I hunt, therefore I am. I'm Chad Belding. This has been another episode of the Fowl Life Podcast, Wildfowl Gear Issue 2020-2021. Have a great 4th of July, everybody. If you hear this after the 4th of July, know that we had a great time cooking wild game on our Traeger grills. I'm so excited. I'm getting goosebumps right now. No pun intended. I will leave it with a little bit of a serenade. When I'm alone in my room, sometimes I stare at the wall. In the back of my mind, I hear my conscience call, telling me I need a shot shell as sweet as a dove. For the first time in my life, I see I need love. There I was, giggling about the games that I had played with many hearts. I'm not saying no names. Then the thought occurred. Teardrops made my eyes burn. I said to myself, look what you done to her. I could feel it inside. I can't explain how it feels. All I know is that I'm never dishing up a raw deal, playing make-believe, pretending that I'm true, holding in my laugh as I say that I love you, saying the more, kissing Skip on the ear, whispering I love you and I'll always be here, though I often reminisce. I can't believe that I found a desire for Rob Roberts floating around inside my soul, because my soul is cold. One half of me deserves to be this way till I'm old, but the other half needs affection and joy and the warmth that is created by a mallard and a wood duck and a boy. I'm Chad Belding. This has been another episode of the Fowl Life. Skip Knowles, any closing words?
No, so I just appreciate your passion and your own leadership in your own fun way, Chad. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, buddy. Dan Compton, any closing words?
No, thanks for having me, man. And you said, like, what do people, when they need to, when they read the magazine, just listen to a podcast like that, and just being lumped in with guys like you as an expert is just an honor to me. So have a good one.
Man, Dan Compton, I love you like a brother. Rob Roberts, I love you too, my man. Any closing words, Rob Roberts?
Just remember, guns and people with the ability to use them is what made this country free. Get out and vote.
Yes, sir. Very well said. Tom, hit that button. This is 2 AM Logic. The song is called My Foul Life. We will be back with you with another episode soon. I'm Chad Belding. Thank y'all very much.